Let's welcome in our morning guest, Sanjeev Basin of India Infoline will just join us. K. Subramaniam is with me right now in our India Bull studio. Mayuresh Joshi is also joining us, as Manas Jaiswal also joins us from Lucknow. Good morning, gentlemen. Subra, let me start with you. What are your calls for the day?
Well, Pankaj, good morning. To begin with, the token chosen some counters which probably will not be affected by the rate sensitives going with RBI policy today. So, buy on Infratel, which saw some softness yesterday. But
you mean Bharti Infratel?
Bharti Infratel possibly could be bought for a possible target of 395. One could keep a stop loss of 374. Engineers India, that's been one bright spot in the market. Again saw some correction yesterday, possibly could be bought for a possible target of 305 and stop loss of 283. And the last one, metal counter Tata Steel, which saw some strength yesterday, and the metal seems looking like getting on to some bullish action. Tata Steel could be bought for a possible target of 440, stop loss of 408.
Right. Mayuresh, what will be your calls for the day?
Morning, Pankaj. Largely, again, I think keeping the policy in view, the markets have factored in 25 bips cut. And largely, again, I think the expectations of loose monetary policy continuing from the ECB and the Fed hike of almost 25 bips is largely baked in. Now, the surprise element would be if RBI front loads with a 50 bips cut, or Fed does not hike, does not look like the probability. So I think a 50 bips cut is something that can surprise the markets. Otherwise, I think the bond markets and the equity markets have largely factored that in. But coming back to the point, again, I think with the whole saga of demonetization playing out, corporate earnings, GDP expected to take a huge hit, specifically in Q3. My own sense is that sectors related to government spending, government capex, which might include infrastructure, which might include roads, which might include EPC players, which might include power, is something that we are looking at. So power transformers as a space is something looking extremely attractive. Selectively powered T&D, transmission and distribution, is looking attractive as well. On the infra side, my own sense is that significant project deliveries will start taking place in terms of orders, specifically for the roads and highways segment. So EPC players attached with all these parts should do well. And again, selectively large cap pharma is something that I'm very, very optimistic about.
Manas, what are your calls?
Good morning. My first call is a buy call on Torrent Power, where stock made a base near 260 a few weeks back, and it has started making higher tops and higher bottoms and broke the resistance of 180 yesterday with great volumes. So I'm expecting further up move in Torrent Power. It can test 190, so one can buy it with a stop loss of 178. Second call is a buy call on Tata Chemicals, where stock was facing a lot of resistance near to 470, 480 a few days back, but yesterday it broke that resistance with higher volumes. It is trading above 100-day moving average. So we may see further recovery in Tata Chemicals. It can test 515. So one can buy it with a stop loss of 485. And last one is a buy call on BEML, where stock has broken the resistance of 850 and started making higher tops and higher bottoms on the daily chart. Yes, stock has some resistance near to 880, but look at the pattern. I think it can break that resistance also, and it can test 910, which is it's a 100-day moving average. So 910 is our target. One can buy it with a stop loss of 850.
All right, so those are the picks coming in from Manas. Let's focus on a couple of stocks that we'll keep an eye on because of news associated with them. There is Balkrishna Industries that is going ex-dividend at 2 rupees a share. All right. Mayuresh, wanted your view on bank stocks. What would you do with the policy coming up, policy announcement coming up later today? Any bank stocks which are on your radar?
Morning, Anisha. Again, I think largely, as I said, the expectations of a 25 bips cut is largely baked in. So if that probably comes through, I think the street is not going to be surprised. But having said that, my own sense is that with the kind of flows that we're seeing in the system because of demonetization, and the expectations of some of the money remaining back as deposits, it's a problem of plenty for the banking sector as a whole, because I think the lending is still extremely tepid at this point of time, and though expectations of credit growth to pick up in the second half are significantly higher, with expected slowdown happening both on the disbursement side when it comes to loan approvals as well as on the consumption side, that process probably has got delayed by 1-2 quarters. So largely again, I think the larger private sector banks is where the focus would still lie, but selectively within that space itself, I think the retail oriented ones at this point of time would look rather attractive compared to the entire banking cloud, including the corporate facing side and the PSU side. So largely the larger retail oriented private sector banks is something to be focused on, and on significant declines, I think corporate facing banks as well as larger PSU banks would become an interesting viable option. But at this point of time and in a staggered manner, I think the larger retail oriented private sector banks look attractive.
All right, those banks with a strong retail presence is the one which Mayuresh prefers. Manas, have you had a look at the charts of REC and PFC? Both of these stocks have done very well when the markets have corrected. They've defied the trend. After making a new high, PFC has declined a little bit. Do you think any of these stocks offer a good buying opportunity?
See, both the stocks are making higher tops and higher bottoms. They are continuously taking support near to 50-day moving average. Yes, we have witnessed some profit booking on higher levels in last 3 trading sessions, but I think especially PFC, where stock has a lot of support in the range of 125, 122. There definitely you can buy at current levels, keep the stop loss below 124, and you can set the target of around 140 in next 1 or 2 weeks time. So the overall trend is positive. If you are invested, then definitely you can hold the stock and you can expect almost 12 to 15% up move in next 8 to 10 months time.
Right, just about 3 minutes remaining for markets to open. Mayuresh, what will be your call? What do you think RBI would do? 25 is something which the street is building in, but do you think there is a possibility of 50 basis points?
So Pankaj, I think the outside chance always exists for a 50 pips cuts to come through. I think if the RBI policy is aggressive, keeping in mind what we've probably witnessed in the economy so far, I think the outside probability remains for a 50 pips. And if that really happens, I think the markets will take it very, very positively, because the expectations are low key for a 50 pips cut. But largely again, I think the entire prognosis after that is going to be how transmission really happens and how credit lending actually starts taking place in the system over the next few weeks. A whole host of banks have actually cut down their MCLRs over the past few days as well, and that effectively brings down the lending rate. The deposit rates have also come down, with a lot of banks cutting down their bulk deposit rates as well. So I think the spreads and the NIMs that they probably enjoy will be far dependent on the volume of credit growth that should significantly pick up. But that looks unlikely, as I said earlier, over the next 2 to 3 months to say the least. So again, I think 50 pips not factored in. If it comes, huge surprise for the markets, and I think the markets would react extremely positively if that happens.
Right, Sanjeev Bhasin is also now joining us. Sanjeev, quickly, we have 1 minute for markets to open. What are your calls?
Yeah, so we have a buy on Bajaj Finance, stop loss 875, target 925. This is the best proxy play on the NBFC space. Second is a buy on Tata Chemical, again stop loss 475, target 525. Again, value pick in the Tata pack can give you a huge upside once this whole rhetoric on the management gets sorted. Third would be my old favorite NBCC, stop loss 225, target 265. The order flow is the strongest which has been in the last 5 years, and we see no reason this stock should be re-rated on the upside. Fourthly, another of my favorites, Engineers India, stop loss 275, target 325, come bonus 1:1, 1 year target, you could have an X bonus price of 200.
Right, very interesting picks, Sanjeev. We'll discuss that in just a bit. But about 5 to 7 seconds remaining for markets to open. Banks would be in focus. Rate sensitives would be in focus throughout the day. Some of the names like DLF, Anisha, which mentioned, Cobden, which declares their numbers, would also be quite interesting. SBI 0.7% higher. Sun Pharma down about 1.8%. Tata Power up 0.5%. Tata Motors down about 0.25%. Hindalco 0.6% higher, 176. Bharti Airtel up 0.5%, and Idea Cellular at 74.75. ITC really no change. Idea is now slipping into the red. ONGC 0.2% higher. Tata Steel really flat at this moment. Yes Bank shot up in the second half of trading session yesterday, but now at 1197. Adani Ports 273, Axis Bank up about 0.25%. BHEL 128, Power Grid at 183.8, Reliance Industries 1005, really no change for Reliance Industries, and HCL Tech up close to about 0.5%, 785 for HCL Tech. Infosys 967, BPCL 0.7% higher, HDFC Limited up about 8 to 9 rupees. Balakrishna Industries gets ex-dividend today, but I don't think markets is taking a note of that. Even volumes are very, very limited on that particular name. ICICI Bank 2 rupees higher. They are looking for fundraising on 9th of December when we'll have the details of that fundraising. Bharti Airtel 0.3% higher, 329 for Bharti Airtel. 48,000 shares traded, so that's also a name which is doing well. Piramal Enterprise 15 to 20 rupees higher, but just look at the volumes. It's really no change in terms of the volumes for Piramal Enterprise. That's why probably it'll take some time for it to open. RNFS Transportation, an order back, 55,000 shares already traded. It's not a very frequently traded counter, so within 1 minute you've seen this. Inox wins a 50 megawatt order, 7 to 8% higher. If I'm not wrong, I think it was also buzzing in yesterday as well. It was up around 6% yesterday as well, so about 13% in 2 days. And don't forget, if crude prices go up, it automatically gives wind power, wind alternative sources of energy, a very, very big boost. Lupin 1542, that's where Lupin is trading in. Lupin right now I think is also the top Nifty 50 gainer. Our Nifty is around 18 points higher, 8,161. So I think it's just between the pivot and the first resistance in this first minute of trading session. Anisha, any volume buzzers that you can pick up?
Well, Pankaj, Sun Pharma is down 3%. It's the biggest drag on the Nifty, and on reasonable volumes, this pharmaceutical stock is down 20 rupees in just the first 5 minutes of trade. So this is one stock to watch. I don't know if there's any news associated with it, but this stock has collapsed quite a bit. The soya protein is down 25%. I mean, it's a very small, it's a penny stock. NBCC is seeing a little bit of profit taking, but on the gaining side, like you mentioned, Inox Wind is one that has done well. It's up about 8% now on reasonable volumes. We are also seeing Torrent Power. I think it was one of the picks of our guest. That one is up 2.5%. Nalco is up 2%. Adani Transmission is up 2%. Petronet LNG is up 2%. HPCL up 1.5%. Nalco, we're seeing a gain of 2.5%. Engineers India is also up more than 1%. Dish TV is up more than 1% at 88 rupees. So these are some of the stocks that are moving up today at this point of time. The breadth largely remains positive, and we are seeing reasonable moves. More stocks gaining than those losing. All right, I have a question for Subra. Subra, do you track Sun Pharma? Something happening there? That stock is dropped 20 bucks in the first 5 minutes. What can you tell by the open interest addition or decrease there?
But broadly, I think the stock has been some sort of an underperformer, and we have seen some open interest short creeping in the last couple of days, and today it has also breached some critical levels. So, but this has been a stock which has seen some just some near-jerk up move, and my sense is that near term probably we could be slipping to levels of maybe 675 thereabouts. But I think that's about it. I think beyond that, one has to wait and watch.
Right. So wait and watch for Sun Pharma. What do you do with other stocks like Petronet? Post its earnings, this stock has done well. So Manas, do you have a view on Petronet on the charts?
See, it is trading sideways. It is facing some resistance near to 390, 395, and it has a lot of support near to 360. But if you're talking about trend, the overall trend is quite positive. On the medium term charts, it is making higher tops and higher bottoms, and the possibility is very high that it can break 395 soon, and it can come up to around 420. But if you're a trader, then I think you should wait. You should buy above 395. But if you're an investor, say around 3 to 4 months time, then definitely you can buy the stock at current levels, keep the stop loss below 360, and you can set the target of around 434, 35 in next 1 or 2 months time.
Right. Just let's pull up the stock of Manpasand Beverages. It's down about 10%. No particular news flow that one can pick up. It's down 10%. 550. The day's low is 540. Remember, it's one of the stocks that a lot of people like. 27,000 shares in terms of volumes, and just look at the 10-day average. It's not a traded counter. It's not a frequently traded counter. 551 for Manpasand Beverages. We'll try and find out what's happening over there, but definitely this is a stock that one should focus on. Sanjeev, you had Bajaj Finance among the part of your top picks. Just wanted to understand, you as an investor always look at stocks that are trading attractively, as in where valuations are cheap, there is some fear which is built into it, and then you try to find out stocks. But Bajaj Finance is probably one of the most expensive stocks in the NBFC space. So why buy that?
Yeah, so it was very expensive at 1150, but we think that the way forward on the back that there is ample liquidity and cost of funds is going to get lower. We think it's in the best niche space and it will only continue to expand. It's one of the fastest growing NBFCs, and we see the multiple after this 1 quarter hiatus actually picking up. So we actually had a buy closer to 800 levels, but now we've upped our target. We think you could get closer to 1150 by the end of the year. So for us, financials where margins are going to be slightly subdued, but volumes are going to rise, particularly on the consumption side, will be key. And we think Bajaj Finance fits the bill perfectly.
Right. So despite valuations being one of the sector leading, that's a buy because the growth outlook is very strong.
Exactly, and you want to be with pedigree stocks with the managements being very, very strong and in niche areas where you've seen over a period of time excellence.
Right. Sanjeev, anything you can pick up on Sun Pharma? It's down 3%. Even Anisha highlighted it. 1.4 million shares traded at 685. Would you be a buyer?
No, Pankaj, we'd wait for levels closer to 645, 650. That is where we initiated our buy. If you recall, you were on your channel when there was uncertainty on the US elections. We think those are very, very comfort level where the risk reward is favorable, and 720 is a very, very strong resistance. In fact, we advocated to book profits around 720. I don't know the reason for today, but since the stock has been an outperformer in the recent 1 to 2 weeks, you could have seen some sort of profit booking or maybe some development which we are not aware of. But I think 650 would be a very, very comfort level to get into Sun Pharma again. It would be one of the better performing stocks in the pharma sector despite having 48% revenue from the US.
Right. This would also classify as Bajaj Finance a high pedigree stock, and whenever the growth returns, they'll command sector leading valuations again.
No question. I mean, at 650 or 600, when it fell to those levels, it was an extremely value accretive buy. And we think in the pharma space, we want to stay with 3 pedigree names: Sun Pharma, Cipla, and Dr. Reddy. Despite slightly higher valuations, Cipla on the domestic front and Dr. Reddy on the back that a large part of their FDSU are solved, and Sun Pharma with the Taro brand being played out brilliantly. We think now the rhetoric on the US side also easing, this stock could easily surpass most estimates on the upside.
Right. In terms of the policy, Sanjeev, what is your expectation? Say if there is a 50 basis point rate cut, you think the street would still not be surprised?
No, I think 25 basis point is what you will get. The more key is what is the CRR outlook, because the banks are going to be the ones which are flush with money, and particularly State Bank. Now you will see cutthroat levels of lending rates being cut, because what will happen, Pankaj, margins are and NIMs are going to contract. So it's a tough space for some of the private banks, but the public banks are going to be laughing their way to the bank. So I think it will be 25 basis point. What will be the accent on the CRR? What is the MSS? Those will be key determinants. But surely for any correction after this rate hike should be an opportunity to buy, particularly the PSUs. So State Bank continues to be our top pick over there for a medium term target of 275 and 300 in the next 3 months.
Right. Mayuresh, what do you do with names like IOC, BPCL, HPCL? when crude started to spike, there was a correction over there, but it's a buying opportunity?
So again, largely, Pankaj, the delta in terms of earnings with the fall in crude over the past few quarters has largely got priced in the numbers, and significantly I think the working capital constraints have come off, debt levels have come off, and the ambitious capex plans of these OMCs are playing out. On the other side, I think if you look at the marketing margins, whether that be for petrol or diesel, which will around 1.6, 1.5, there seems to be some headroom there for increase, and that probably will up the earnings estimates for most analysts. Third, I think with the kind of increase that we've seen in crude prices, a lot of OMC companies, if crude is expected to stay in this range at least for the next 2 quarters, would be sitting on inventory gains at least for Q3. But largely again, I think it's going to be the marketing margin play which is going to be an earnings driver for these OMCs. In terms of valuations, whether on a price to book or a price to earnings multiple, the stocks had reached fair valuation. So again, I think investors holding the stocks should clearly hold. Long-term investors should probably wait for declines onto these companies.
Right. Subra, what will be your view on oil marketing companies? Some of them are looking very strong today.
Well, I think that could be on the back of, I think, some correction in the crude which we saw. But I think now we are approaching levels where I think one would again start looking at some of these oil marketing companies, because I think these are counters which have a lot of appetite, buying appetite coming about at lower levels. For instance, if I were to take a call on BPCL, I think closer to levels of 425 will have a decent support level where one could get into HPC, Hindustan Petroleum, and similarly something like a BPCL, 590, 600. I think these are levels where I think attractive enough to enter, and I think one would be well off to accumulate the stocks at declines.
All right, look at accumulating some of the oil marketing companies. Mayuresh, do you have a view on some of the media stocks like Dish TV, Zee TV? They have been buzzing off late. Do you think they're good for more, or one should steer clear because of the uncertainty on ad spends post demonetization?
No, Anisha, I think the ad spends are going to go down. Take for instance the FMCG spends that probably come through. I think they're expected to fall significantly in Q3. So if I specifically look from a near-term perspective in Q3 earnings, you are going to see a dent in terms of how ad revenues are getting played out. In terms of core subscription revenues, whether that be for broadcasting companies or even the digital companies or even the newspaper circulation companies, I think you have seen some amount of sluggishness happening on that front. So in a certain way, I think subscription revenue is not growing in terms of core coverback prices or core increase in subscriber revenues as per net additions. My own sense is that with decrease in ad revenues expected to come through, you might see contraction in the overall earnings estimates for FY17. How FY18 will pan out will depend on how normalization probably takes place over the next few weeks and how consumption demands start coming back into the system. If consumption demands stay extremely strong and start reviving in Q4, my own sense is that FY18 numbers should normalize for these companies. But again, I think you have to be very, very selective within this space. So largely, again, I think if investors are holding on to stocks like Zee, continue holding on. The numbers might be tepid. Again, Jagran Prakashan is something that I've liked for a length of time. So investors holding on to stocks should hold on. But the caveat again is that Q3 numbers are going to be soft and tepid. And the quantum of fall in terms of both volume and value is largely unknown at this point of time.
Right. And what about some of the auto names? They've seen quite volatile move as well. So Mayuresh, Tata Motors, Maruti, do you have a view here?
So again, Anisha, I think four-wheelers as a pack is something that I'll still remain quite optimistic about. And again, on declines, one can really look at this space. The kind of launches that you've probably seen specifically from the four-wheeler stable have been extremely encouraging, and if you look at the trends, I think it's a typical year-end phenomena. Large discounts being meted out, it's the year-end, so I think investors would probably be wanting to buy cars with a 2017 registration rather than going at 2016. The demonetization effect might have some telling effect in terms of how volumes will play out for Q3, but largely looking at their average selling prices, the ticket sizes that four-wheelers operate out of, my own sense is that the bounce back should be quite evident for these companies, whereas as the two-wheeler sales might just have some amount of stickiness and sluggishness going into Q4. So largely I think the four-wheeler space, stocks like Maruti on declines from the current level look extremely attractive. New platforms, extremely encouraging trends with new launches. The indirect exposure in terms of the forex component has probably come down significantly. And again, I think the earnings that they were trading at a few weeks back has contracted, which gives some breathing space. So on declines, I think four-wheeler as a space is something that will remain optimistic about.
Manas, any view on real estate stocks? Some of them like Prestige, Shobha seem to be buzzing today.
See, if I want to trade in reality, then I would like to go long in SDL because the stock has made a base near to 54. It has started making higher tops and higher bottoms. Yesterday we witnessed some booking on higher levels, but the trend is quite positive, and I think even at current levels, one can take a long call, keep the stop loss below 62. Target would be around 68, 69 in the next 2 to 3 day trading sessions.
Right, but real estate as an index is looking good.
Sorry?
Real estate index is also looking strong.
You can expect a reversal in real estate index. You can expect a return of around 5 to 6% in next 2 to 3 weeks time. So this you are playing for a bounce back. The overall trend, if you are talking about medium term or long term trend, then I am still cautious. But if you are a trader and if you want to play for a bounce back, then definitely you can keep a close watch on DLF and SDI.
Right. Subra, any view on Nalco? It was up 10% yesterday. It's up 4% right now.
Interesting stock, and I think we had got into this somewhere close to levels of 50. It's been a very steady mover and has given some pretty good signals. So I expected an outperformer. So my sense is that 70-75 could be a safe target to peg for this counter.
Right, but would you be a buyer right now?
I would think so, yeah. It's given a very good breakout on good volumes, and I would tend to agree that probably it's heading to levels of 70 to 75.
Right. Sanjeev, you look at the metals pack very closely and you advise to buy it, but then after that, the stocks have really never corrected. Do you think that metals now are widening their reach? So it started with the large cap ones like Hindalco, maybe some of the others, and now the second tier names are doing well?
Yeah, you see, like the name you mentioned, Nalco or an NMDC, they have Nalco has almost a 4% dividend yield even now. NMDC has a 11% dividend yield at that 85-90 level. So NMDC is one of our preferred picks in the PSU pack. But Hindalco, JSW, Tata Steel, these continue to be outperformers. Use any declines to buy because you'll be surprised at the upside in the next 1 year, because we continue to hold that it will be a metal or a commodity driven rally going into 2017. So like you said, see the dividend yield, see your level of comfort, but don't ignore this sector even though the stocks have moved up sharply in the last 6 months.
Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out time for us. But just before we go, Sanjeev, let's start with you. Any disclosures?
Well, most of the stocks spoken, we as a brokerage house will have clients who have positions. I have no positions, neither as a holding or as any trading position.
Right. Mayuresh, any disclosures for you?
Pankaj, no personal holdings on the stock sector as discussed, but again, we might have discussed this with our clients and we might be holding these stocks on behalf of our clients in our schemes.
Subra, disclosures?
Yeah, no personal holdings, but the views would be the same which we would have given to some of our clients.
And Manas, finally for you?
No personal holdings, but we have recommended some of these stocks to our clients.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
With that, we'll slip into a break. When you come back,